And
A drill,
one time
yep.
I found, this is insane, double guitar case guns. They are
Yep.
2 guitar cases that he walks around with and then shoots them like this. It's insane.
You can pick.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where 3 guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan here.
And this is episode 406. Question of the week: who is the best video game villain?
Easy. Sometimes I struggle on these, and it takes me a long time to think of an answer or be objective or whatever else. This one is so obvious. It's GLaDOS.
Interesting choice. Good choice.
Strong choice.
Easy.
Not easy and not correct, but
No, it's
strong.
not correct.
Absolutely correct, and easy choice.
Great villain, but also kind of not if you keep playing series. Sephiroth is the best villain of all time.
Thank you for saying it, so I didn't have to.
This is a correct answer.
I've
Kenny.
decided that I
Lenny.
can't have a Final Fantasy answer for every single question, so I actually
So
was
you
like,
need Nolan too?
yeah. So I needed
Well,
someone to.
here's your validation. I mean, he's like the tragic backstory, the dark present, and then just the
Stop.
finale.
Kenny is shaking his head. Sorry.
No, he's the best, Kenny, and he's sick. His sword.
Zaddy.
His
It's
hair?
way too skinny. Come on, y'all. Buster sword better than Sephiroth's sword. Everyone knows this. It's
Both
not
of those
difficult.
are
Cool.
unwieldy.
Yes.
I can't
They're both
wield them.
bad swords objectively, but that's not the conversation.
We all went different places. Here's the thing. Sephiroth is, of course, the correct answer.
Yes.
And I couldn't think of... There's not tons of good video game villains.
Well,
I
there's
think
not.
I think
There's like 5
they're
amazing
fine.
ones.
There's some that people really like. Did you guys do Borderlands?
No.
Yeah, but no, don't go there.
The second Borderlands, people love that guy, handsome.
Yeah, the
Jack
handsome
or
guy,
Jake
I don't
or
think so.
whatever his
Handsome
he
Jack.
He's well loved.
is his name.
All right, so Nolan, you went with Sephiroth. Lenny, you went with
I will fight you.
GLaDOS. I am going to go with the elusive man from Mass Effect 3.
Whoa.
It's not a great answer, but listen, if you play, first of all, Mass Effect is a great series, but this is an interesting villain who you know from the beginning, who is elusive and shadows and cloaks, kind of tries to use Shepard as a partner to bring him. I like that kind of duality. Look, Sephiroth is just like mwahaha bad, Bowser
Yeah.
mwahaha bad. Although there's some nuance to Bowser nowadays. But,
Yeah, there is.
with the elusive man, there's purpose and reason behind what he's doing, and
Is he
he's
in two?
wise. And I don't think he's.
Is he like
Is he
a businessman that sits in front of
Yes,
this giant
yes,
screen
yes.
and he recruits Shepard?
Yes.
He's in 2.
He's in 2.
I like
also?
that guy. Yeah,
He was
for
voiced by Martin Sheen, also, which is not a bad
Ooh.
thing.
That's funny.
And so look,
That's a
it's
good
not
answer.
a great answer. The best answer is the one that you gave, Nolan, but I needed to come up with something else.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought Lenny was going to say Sephiroth, and I was just going to agree with him.
Yeah.
I will murder every single one.
We're fine with
That's
GLaDOS.
violent, Kenny.
Here's the thing. We don't agree with each other. Y'all probably don't agree with us too. So straighten these guys out. Double dipping the same answer is not what we want to hear. So we want to know which video game villains we've forgotten. Hop into our Discord server. The latest episode discussion has an ongoing thread for you to answer the question of the week. And we want to hear all about your opinions because they're better than ours.
Yeah, absolutely. Join us on Discord. You'll love it. It's a no-brainer. Like in our
Love it.
retro game of the week, Zombie Revenge.
Overview.
Zombie Revenge is a 1999 arcade and Dreamcast beat-em-up. It was developed and published by Sega. I believe Data East, who also worked on this, had been acquired by Sega by this point, so that's why I said it was developed by Sega. This game is actually supposed to be a spin-off game, or is a spin-off game, of another Sega arcade game, a horror light gun shooter called House of the Dead. Do you guys recall that one? I have no memory of that, and like your average pizza parlor, I don't think they were putting the horror genre in there. It feels more like a back of the arcade, maybe not back, but like in the arcade kind of like enthusiast game. I've never heard of it.
I think, look, it's hard because first person light gun shooting zombies is kind of a thing that was done a lot of different times in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I actually remember the House of the Dead, but I remember some kind of zombie shooting games.
It might have been that one. I think it was fairly popular in that genre.
I have vague recollections of seeing that title like on an arcade cab, but I didn't never really go towards shooters or to zombie horror style, so it wouldn't have been what I was drawn to.
Well, it's just funny to me that so you've at least seen it. It's like you wouldn't think that would have a spin-off series. Like,
right.
You know, like Resident Evil gets a spin-off series, not House of the Dead. Anyways, in this game, I called it a beat 'em up, and it is, but there's more to it than just punching your way through the level as you do in many beat 'em up style games. There's weapons in this one. You play as Stick Brightling, Linda Rada, and Rikiya Busujima.
Which those names
just
Can we
Linda Rada?
Can we talk? No, that's what you're caught up on. Can we talk about the parents that get together and decide to name their kids Stick?
Stick Brightling.
Exactly.
At least has a cool last name. I'll like to watch. You play as one of those characters shooting and bashing your way through a city that is ravaged by zombies, as you could have guessed by the title. And, because apparently the government had a great idea to utilize the dead as weapons, to weaponize corpses.
Not a bad idea.
Get this, it backfires. A malicious person takes over, and then the zombie invasion begins of this city. Rest in peace, or not.
I've got two questions.
I have many, but yeah, what were you?
Just two?
Well, and unrelated even to the story so far, I think. Dreamcast. We played a limited amount of Dreamcast games on this podcast.
We have.
Yep.
Dreamcast is a weird console to me. Was it the PlayStation alternate? What was going on with a Dreamcast?
It was the loser to Sony and eventually Xbox or Microsoft at the time. It was Sega's like move into the 3D console space, trying to continue their home consoles.
People that liked the Dreamcast really liked it though, for some
all
reason.
12 of them.
No. I think there's a much larger audience to Dreamcast than you might think. I have enjoyed my time with the console when we've been able to play games. It's just we've played unfortunate games, I think. The last one was Rent-A-Hero. Bounced off of us very hard. But I know arcade, because Sega had such a like arcade presence, there were so many arcade ports onto the Dreamcast. Lots of fighters. And so I think that's a lot of people's love of the consoles growing up playing like fighters, like Virtua Fighter and stuff on the Dreamcast.
It feels like in part that's what the Dreamcast was utilized for, bringing their arcade games into your home. And I don't think that's a bad idea, but when your competitors at the time, I think the Dreamcast was 6th generation video game console, so that is like the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. Like you're not winning against those.
Well, at the time they didn't know they wouldn't win that. It came out. I'm not sure. The Dreamcast came out. The PS2 launched in 2000 in Japan.
So Dreamcast was before that.
Yeah, well, was
a year
before
or two.
it.
Yeah,
and I think. I mean, after 2000, it was game over. The PS2 just obliterated the market, but Dreamcast is weird. I'll agree.
Yeah, they had a year or two into that. Okay, then I think my second question revolved around the game itself, being the genre.
Yeah.
Is it a beat 'em up?
I don't love calling it that. They categorize it that. That's why I said it, and I'm not going to get mad at it because you do some beating.
It's a It's a gun 'em up.
It's a and you yeah,
that would be
you call
called
it
a shooter a lot of
It's-
days.
No,
That's taken.
no, I would say shoot 'em up because it's a beat 'em up that you shoot, but a shoot 'em up is its own thing that's not this.
Right.
And so it needs to be something else. It's a
gun 'em up.
It's
Yeah.
not its own genre. Don't give
Yeah, I don't
Zombie
know.
Revenge the spin-off to the House of the Dead its own genre, Lenny. Come on. I think, okay, I'll give it a beat 'em up, but what I was expecting, knowing that it was a beat 'em up and hopping into the game, which I guess we're about to talk about, I didn't expect to then have a gun with a reticle. Like that's
Sure.
not what you do in beat 'em ups. In fact, that's like a rule of you can't do this in beat 'em ups.
We are going to draw comparisons a lot in gameplay to other games that are not beat 'em ups and not shoot 'em ups.
Gameplay.
Zombie Revenge has a variety of gameplay modes, but really only one or two that you're going to be spending the most of your time with, I would think. You've got arcade mode, which is just as faithful as possible, bringing over the arcade version of this game to the Dreamcast. You've got original mode, which was the tweaked version of the arcade mode for the Dreamcast in particular. It's almost the exact same in almost every way, except you get additional item drops, I think is one of the main things in that mode.
And maybe health bars are changed. I couldn't quite tell, and I couldn't confirm that, but I don't know. I felt a little different.
At a glance, if you're seeing gameplay of one versus gameplay or another, you're not going to have any idea which mode you're in.
You've got boss mode, which is a boss rush of the bosses that you have fought and found in the game. You've got 2-player fight, which is... it turns it into a fighter.
Yeah, which is not okay. You can't just do that.
You can't throw in a different game mode.
You have to choose, and that they were just like,
Yeah, if you want to have multiplayer, like you do it in the same gameplay style.
You've got a training room, and then you've got Zombie Revenge Raising Game, which, my goodness, did you know there was a VMU for the Dreamcast, which was their primary memory card for the system, but it not only allowed you to save games, but it came with an LCD screen that allowed for its own kind of game. It's got a real-time clock, built-in flash memory, file manager, sound capability, multiplayer gaming capability, and you could play a zombie raising game on that little device.
like Tamagotchi?
Yeah.
Simply, yeah. The VMU thing is Nintendo level experimentation that the Dreamcast had, and I've always thought that controller is wonky because of it. I love it. I think it's good. Like I think it's fine to have something like that, but for a game like Zombie Revenge to a zombie raising mode, nah.
I think the idea was some of the drops, the food drops and stuff that you get in the original mode, you're able to feed your zombie with.
Zombie.
And I think the other mode there is fishing. You can take the zombie fish. Insane. Now, we didn't...
The more you talk, the more I want to play that.
Now, we didn't play it because we don't have VMUs. Sorry.
But I don't think you can effectively emulate that. I don't think.
No.
There's
no,
no way.
Think so. But we did play probably the majority of our time this week, either in the arcade or original mode. Again, it's hard to distinguish between the two. They're virtually the same.
Yeah. And I was a little frustrated when you told me after my first play that I chose arcade mode, that there's a Dreamcast, the other mode called, what is it called?
Original.
Original is Dreamcast?
Which also doesn't make sense.
Confusing.
No,
So-
it sounds like a flavor of barbecue, and it also feels backwards here.
No, don't say right.
Lenny, what?
does.
Barbecue?
Right. Why'd you say right?
Barbecue sauce.
I was agreeing with him at first.
You got, like, honey.
I thought he
and then
was
you got
following.
extra spicy.
No.
I thought he was
No.
following the train of thought of that doesn't. The naming doesn't make sense, but he threw
It
barbecue.
doesn't make sense. It should.
Right.
Original should be arcade,
Yes.
and then you should just have like story or something
Yes.
that is your console's version.
Right.
And-
but also the word original makes me think of barbecue sauce.
No,
I
not
don't
that part.
apologize.
And that's where Lenny
And-
went off. You've got to distinguish between the two.
And it should the default one selected when you hit start on the menu
arcade,
should
yeah.
not be the non-Dreamcast one.
Agreed.
Anyways, I was happy to know that they're virtually the same. I kept playing arcade this week, actually.
Oh,
most
okay.
of the time, like even after finding that out, and I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, same diff.
I don't know.
There are, regardless of which of those two versions you play, there are 7 episodes of various locations where you must do the same thing. Kill all zombies on the screen before the time runs out, and then move on to the next area. We'll get to the timing. I know that bothered you. You kill all the zombies in an area, move to the next area, and fight mid-level bosses or bosses at the end of the particular episodes before there's a little cutscene introducing you to the next episode.
And they try to do like GoldenEye-esque objectives in the stages to, I guess, for plot reasons that really, I mean, it's just a linear experience. You can't really miss them, but they threw that in there. But okay, let's talk about the timing thing. The timer, which is fine, and on a lot of arcade games is at the top in the middle, big numbers. I am not paying attention to it and don't realize that the timer is bound to the scenario screen that you're on. So like Dustin said, you have to clear it.
It's 40% of the screen, and Nolan's not paying attention to it.
But I disagree with the mechanic. Like, a timer for the whole stage, yeah. Get, like, timer pickups.
That's arcade. That's so
I don't
arcade.
know if it works. I don't know
know
if it works that way. I don't know if you can just disagree with the mechanic and then want it not to exist. I disagree that zombies would be picking up guns and shooting back at me, but it happens.
I ran out of time a lot, and it wasn't because it wasn't like a difficulty thing. It was like totally a synthetic arcade thing they threw in to make you throw quarters at the arcade, but this is a screen, not an arcade.
Yeah, they should have not included that time component in the original mode, at least.
Sure, yeah.
And they did. I do think they might have extended some of the timers there. I don't really know for sure, because it wasn't... I don't think that I struggled to do it in time, except some of the bosses, and we'll get to that. But other than that, I didn't have much of an issue with the time on the original mode. But the time component is still there, and as Kenny mentioned, in the last, 10 seconds or so, it does take up the majority of the screen, and it is very obnoxious.
It is yelling at you that you gotta get out.
There's no time in red bold letters flashing, 2 exclamation points, and then there's another phrase that they throw at you, and the voice guy is talking to you.
There's a voiceover that's talking to you as well.
It's unacceptable. And I just want to point out that is the worst part of this game to me, is that stupid, like, time factor. And you can argue that's a remnant of, like, arcade stuff, but I don't complain about that in arcade games that I play most of the time, so it's whack.
I didn't hate it as much. It was heavy-handed, but once I realized you just gotta go fast, and that was the whole shtick, like, it wasn't... The fact that there was a timer didn't bother me that much.
As mentioned, you have 3 different agents you can choose from at the beginning of the game that each have varied stats. So one might have an increased speed, one has greater physical strength, one has better weapon handling, and those do come into play because you can play this game different ways from one another. And in the original mode, actually, Nolan, you've got 3 different options after you selected the original mode. Like, it's a gun mode, a fist mode. I don't remember the exact names of these. Or there's another
normal mode.
Or normal mode. And in the gun mode, your weapon is powered up and your physical attacks are almost nothing. And the reverse is true for the fighting mode. And or you could play normal and kind of just have normal stats depending on your character selection. That is what threw me when I first got into this quote-unquote beat-em-up, because immediately I had a gun and I was on limited ammo shooting zombies like you would in Resident Evil or other entirely non-beat-em-up zombie games.
Yeah, off-putting to me at first too, especially given the like camera angle that you're working with most of the time in this one. I'll just go ahead and you mentioned it. There's a lot of Resident Evil influence. I kind of don't want to call it that here, but they clearly used some of those like game styles in terms of the combat, because there's like an auto aim thing going on with your gun, and it's third person, but you can juggle them in midair with bullets like a fighter.
Devil May Cry. Or
Yeah,
like a
super
fighter, yeah.
Devil May Cry style. There's just a lot mashed together here, but yes, the first thing that was just like, what, is the fact that I have a pistol instead of my fist. I mean, I do have my fist as well, but to a lesser degree.
And I hope y'all discovered the tactic behind shooting, because that is key if you're going to use guns. So the gimmick here is that your reticle selects a zombie, an enemy, and it slowly changes colors until it is red. If you shoot when the reticle is red, it inflicts massive damage. If you shoot before, which you need to do at times because you're being swarmed or whatever, it does less damage, still does damage, but your key thing is wait until it turns red, and then you can take out most zombies in a shot or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually liked that.
I like the idea.
I didn't completely hate the gunplay in general, and found myself playing more gun style than brawl style. That's not a surprise, given sort of how I play games. But I liked that I had to choose. You know, if I was getting overwhelmed, or if somebody had an attack that needed interrupting, or they were going to start shooting me, I needed to be popping them and shooting fast and interrupting. But when they weren't, I could conserve bullets and clean people up by waiting a little longer and getting that aim, and sort of balancing that and feeling like I had to be thinking about the choice I was making, even though to some degree it's auto aim and you're just hitting the button, made me feel more engaged than you could have with something like this. That's, you know, it could have easily just been spam A and like kill everything kind of game. But I don't know, I feel like I had to be strategic.
Yeah, and it took me a lot longer than I wanted to figure that mechanic out. I agree, though. I like its existence here. And I will say, too, that there was more of a healthy balance than I expected between the gunplay and the melee, because the melee does come into play. It's a very good defensive option if you're kind of backed into a corner to kind of punch your way out. And then you can kind of reset, get across the other side, and then do the crit style mechanic of waiting and shooting. I kind of like that. Where it gets a little muddy for me was when you get the different gun types. So there's a SMG, there's a shotgun. And I guess the mechanic remains, but it just... the pistol feels really good to me, honestly, but it's the worst weapon.
You have the pistol on you at all times.
Yeah.
You can pick up temporary weapons and use them until their ammo is gone, and then the weapon drops. You named some of the normal weapons, Nolan, but there are abnormal weapons that you can find along the way as well. Like a flamethrower. You can find this massive drill. And one time I found, this is insane, double guitar case guns. They are two guitar cases that he walks around with and then shoots them like this. It's insane.
You can pick up an axe or a hatchet as well. There's lots of both guns and other weapons.
Those weapons are so Sega. Like, if you showed me the game and then tell me who made it, if I saw the weapons that you end up using, I would have been like, Sega made this. Because they loved ridiculous zombie killing for some reason in so many of their games. And the drill is ridiculous. It's huge.
Do be careful, though, because we're making it sound a little bit cooler than it is. I had written down about the balance that it is the worst offender in the game. But Nolan, you just said the balance is fine. I think part of it might honestly have been my fault, because when I started noticing the bad balance, it was when I chose the original mode and then chose the beat 'em up style. So it does tweak things where your physical attacks do so much more damage. Listen, I was only able to get to, I don't know, the third episode maybe, or on normal, just regular with gun and fighting being balanced. When I switched over to physical attack, where that one was increased, and I chose Rakia or whatever, who has greater physical stats anyways.
He's the brawler,
I was able to get much, much further because I was just going around doing combos all the time with my physical attacks.
It's more of a masher. At that point.
Yeah, it is. But there are also like fighting combinations that you can input and do grapples and throws and...
See, I'm interested in that, honestly.
Yeah, I think, Nolan, you would have had more fun if you decided to play it as more of a fighter. I feel like, at least based on your first play, you probably did more what I did and did more shooting.
I did. It felt more it felt the right way to. It felt like the way they wanted you to play the game because that's the default method.
No, you've really got both options.
I kind of
wish they'd shown the brawling earlier.
Yeah.
Almost don't give you a gun and let you like
pick
beat
one
up a bunch of people
and
then be like, oh, and now you've discovered a gun, and then because it kind of defaults because of how you start the game. Yeah. So you got to change your thinking a little as you go.
I still think the balance needed to be tweaked though, because like some bosses on the normal mode with gun and fighting, it took me until the timer was down to like the last few seconds. When I was brawling, I beat some of those bosses in a matter of seconds.
The speed strats
took their time, their health out completely, and so that is just. And then the thing that frustrated me the most, I'll just get to that, and then we can maybe circle around to bosses right now, because there are some bosses that are ranged bosses. There's one in particular that you fight on top of a train, and it is like a pterodactyl kind of like zombie, but I don't know what it is. But it flies away, flies towards you. If I'm playing, they didn't change the gameplay when you choose the brawling mechanic. And so I didn't have a gun. I did not have a gun. So I had to wait till it swung by me. But with the timer in place, there was no way that I could pass that. And that is so bad. If you're going to give us alternate game modes that do not require you to have a gun, then
design the bosses.
You have to
accommodate.
Yeah, change the boss pattern or something so that you can fight them. Don't give us ranged bosses when all you have is your fist that you can't shoot off your arm to go and hit the enemy.
I will say about the bosses that no, he's right. I think the bosses are kind of nice here in the sense that they felt like true difficult boss fights. They weren't phoned in half the time. They're dumb, grotesque, edgy looking zombie things. But they are all unique. There's that flamethrower one that kind of hops around. Feels fair. It's doable. Unless, apparently, you do the melee style, and if the boss is not designed for that. But the timer, again, I have to bring it back up. In the boss fights, problem. It's a problem. Yeah. And it makes it hard in the arcade way that I always get so frustrated with. I get it. They had to make money, and that's how cabinets make money. You have this progression thing in place to make it hard. And it feels good, when you're standing in a cabinet and you finally do it. But at home, it feels bad on a console.
Yeah, you definitely got to change the vibe a little bit when you do the port, and this one still felt very traditional arcade for sure.
Aged.
We talk a lot about factors that age a game or don't. I don't think we've ever specifically talked about the zombie factor.
Explain.
Zombies are and have been wildly popular, but it tends to sort of come in waves culturally. But because of that, there are so many zombie games out there. This game has a huge variety of things it is competing against to stay relevant today as a zombie game.
Lenny, are you saying that zombies are dead? That's a dead trope?
Zombies are dead?
Busted. What I'm saying is zombies have a lot of games that have zombies in them.
Wait, whoa. Zombies have a lot of games that have zombies in them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Zombies have a lot of games that have zombies in them. So they're overrepresented. They're overrepresented in video games.
I think that this is a five-head theory. I think it got really popular, especially at the time, because when you want to make a violent video game, it's a safer choice to kill monsters, but these are people monsters.
Are already dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's not at all times. Like, if you think about it, in almost every single kind of fantasy, sci-fi, anything like that, there's always there's even a name for it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's always enemies that the reader or the player will feel less bad about killing, whether it's zombies or it's. I mean, you can think about honestly in anything, Parshman or anything else. There are
putties.
Oh yeah. I mean, you went Power Rangers. There's always going to be some kind of like grunt enemy that there can be a lot of,
Grunts.
or orcs, goblins. You know, like, and
So maybe that's why you saw so much of that, especially when at this time parents were getting mad at violent video games making my kid into a bad person. I think though that there's. I don't think the fact that it's a zombie trope is what's aging the game.
No, I think it's just a factor that we don't always get to talk about. So it was fun to bring
Yeah, it's
up.
interesting.
What's more important is how do you deal with arcade games and future-proofing them? Because we can say things like handheld games future-proof well because of just the way they work, and phones are sort of similar today or whatever else. Arcade cabinets don't have that equivalent. And I know this was a port and got reworked to some degree, but this is very much an arcade game and feels like it. And I don't feel like that experience future proofs or translates nearly as well as certain other types of games.
Well, then I just feel it's the fault of the developers for not porting that version properly because other companies did. Do that right.
I'm looking through the arcade games that we have played, at least the ones that originated on an arcade. Not tons, right? But like some of them, and I think there's a defining line here. There are some that were ported, and when they ported, they reworked so that it worked on a home console, because that is a different kind of game format altogether.
The game might look the same, might play the same. It's a different format.
Yes. And then there are some that just copy-pasted it thinking, oh, that's fine. And it is not fine. It is never fine. It never works that way. And so, like, you've got to be able to adjust it as you bring it over. They didn't here. And I think that it is seen. I think that is an issue for sure.
And, you know, we play arcade games that were ports. And we're more talking about, like, not so much, oh, this arcade game is hard to play in 2023. We have other problems with, like, maybe the controller or something else about the game itself. Here, it's the format being the, like, obvious thing that they just... I think it was a lazy effort. It was, because it's a port, essentially. It came out at the same time. I don't think they would call it a port. But it totally freaking is.
Definitely.
So... You know, it's seen and felt here. And some people might not care.
One of the sins that I don't think lies with it being a port from an arcade, but lies with the Dreamcast, and I'm just saying that because I have felt this on so many Dreamcast games, has to do with the stiffness of the play, of the models, the sluggishness of the play.
I don't think it's fair to put that on the console.
I don't either.
Every single Dreamcast game we played, even the one that I liked, the one with it's not Legend of Dragoon, but it's like that with the dragon and the like
that's fair.
That one is also sluggish when you're.
Though we didn't bring it up, that's more of a gameplay issue in my mind. But yes, this was stiff and hard to control, and mobility should have been so important here. And like getting away and positioning yourself in boss fights, and it did not work well or easily. So fair complaint. I think you're blaming the wrong people.
But see, this is the same console that also had Sonic Adventure 2. Like that's what it came out on, and so it's like
sure, but also the one that had Shenmue and Rent a Hero 1.
Don't you say something about Shenmue? Don't you say something?
I enjoyed it, but it is stiff and sluggish.
It is stiff.
There's something about Dreamcast. They don't know what they're doing yet.
But Soul Calibur, it also got a lot of other like, you know, cross-platform titles like Tony Hawk and stuff was a really popular game on the Dreamcast. But then you had it on PlayStation as well, and so it's, you know. I get what you're saying about the console. I think we're too early in the catalog, for me personally, for me to say this, that I think the fault is with the console. I'm still hopeful, and there's something about it I like. It's probably the Sega boy within me that wants it to be sick, and I know there's a fan base that really loves the console, but this game is not a good example of what the console is capable of.
I need to swing to the other side to give it some kind of perk or I don't know, call out something that it did well. And I think with fixed camera angles, that often works well. And you can show what you want to be seen and not show what would be ugly. And so I think, and it might be a little bit dynamic, but I think most of the time you've got a fixed angle that you're looking down on the scene from. And so I think most of it looks well. And I think the Dreamcast ports over the graphic fidelity of most games that we played from the arcade well.
I think this game looks pretty good, honestly. For the era, I was pretty pleased. You know,
see, I won't give it that. I'll defend it on other. Yeah. There's one thing in particular that this game does that probably happened on the arcade as well. It definitely happened on the arcade because this happened. A lot of games did this for some reason, and I'm just now realizing it. Hey, if you have like health issues with like flashing things, don't play this game.
That's bad. Yeah.
There's a harsh like flashing that happens more often than it should. In between chapters, you'll be playing, you get the story beat at the end, or character selection, but at the end of the stage when you get story beat, you get just flashbang. And I think they're trying to be like scary with it. It's not scary, it hurts. And that crap's garbage. And then the graphics themselves, nothing special. I'm sure it looks very faithful to the arcade. Maybe the arcade one didn't look great. I don't like it.
What I thought didn't hold up well was the voice acting. They have voice acting on these characters, and it's so bad. But not even, how some of these zombie films and games are like, I don't know, like campy. That's the word.
Yes.
This is not that. It's just bad.
Bad.
Right.
And it sounds like the recording quality. Like, did they not get that and be like, oh, I can hear your fan in the background, or like open your mouth. Like, it's bad quality. It's not just bad performance. It's bad quality.
Yeah. And the gun sounds, the monster sounds, all pretty harsh.
Yeah, the sound and music were all way too loud and frantic. They were trying to do this whole scary, intense, arcade
It's no Resident
thing,
Evil.
But they ended up just being too heavy-handed with it.
No, it is not. And like I said earlier, heavily influenced by Resident Evil and others, like they really tried. I don't want to even give them credit here for that. Like, just a failed attempt, honestly. This is like a really ugly attempt at trying to mimic the perfection that is Resident Evil. No thanks.
If you want a copy of this game, then for your Dreamcast, $25 used or $76 new. There are not other games in this series. However, as we've already mentioned, it is a spin-off of the House of the Dead. So you can maybe play that game and get some of the vibes. But again, that is an arcade game that is first-person light gun kind of experience, which I think works well.
That sounds good.
I didn't play the zombie light gun games in there, but I played.
Police
is it time?
Cop.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
With the red and the blue gun, and I know probably a lot of them had red and blue guns, but also with the pedal so that you could, that's a good game. That's not Time Splitter, is it? That's a different thing. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know.
But it's not called Zombie Revenge.
No.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status. That's our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I'll begin by saying Zombie Revenge was boring, and there's nothing to keep me engaged this week. I was having a little bit of fun when I switched to brawling only, which again, I think we offered a few suggestions of how this game could have been better, putting brawling more in the forefront, maybe getting guns at a later time, or brawling and only having guns as your pickups along the way. Your temporary pickups could have been a good solution here. But the way that they tried to mix in a few different genres just didn't work well. I didn't love the balance overall. They didn't even tweak the gameplay so that if you did primarily go towards brawling, that you'd be able to beat the game. You can't. And so, it's got a lot of problems. It's not horrendous enough to remember. It's not good enough to remember. It's just kind of And so I'll forget about it. It'll be another game that I forget about a couple days from now, when even at the end of the year, when I'm making my list of order of the games, the 50 something games that we played this year, I'll forget about this one. And that's just a few weeks from now. So this is completely forgettable. Don't play it. Hey, if you come across it in the arcade, throw in a quarter or two, see if it's fun to play. But after that, you've got quarters to waste on other games. No NGP from me. Lenny?
I actually had more fun than I expected, though I didn't come in with super high expectations. I do think that even folks that like this game will like it for, I don't know, 1, maybe 2 relatively quick playthroughs. It's very much a rental. Not only is the gameplay loop quick, but the game itself is short. Even if you play it all the way through and can beat it, you're talking a sub 1 hour game. So it's not worth owning, even if you like this game. And I know today we don't do game rentals, but like, this is a rental. And most people won't even be in the camp where they feel like they should. I did have a bit of fun, but it was overshadowed by an equal or greater amount of various frustrations. So I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on this one as well. I didn't think it was boring like Queston, but I did think that it wasn't a lot to talk about. And so if you've got it lying around and you need to just check it out because you want to turn off your brain, de-stress kind of game, that's fine. Also, if you're a 7th grader who just bought a pack of, like a 12-pack of Surge, and you're having a sleepover, like, pull out your
Surge?
Dreamcast, play this game, it's fine. But like, if you're not in one of those camps, avoid this game. And thankfully, because it was so short, I got to spend most of my week playing Final Fantasy IX instead of a ton of this game. So props to this game for at least not being long and bad.
Lenny, give us an update on Final Fantasy IX. What disc are you on? I know you can't really maybe determine, but like, what's your party makeup?
I'm a lot further, probably mid-20s level. Just got a couple of the new characters, Amarant and Eiko, the little girl, however you pronounce it. So going well, having fun with it. Probably played more this week than I even played the week of, which is saying something.
Hey.
And so, yeah, I delivered on telling you guys I was going to play more of that game. And sorry for derailing us.
I love it too. Do you think you'll finish it?
Oh, yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week we'll have an update. Maybe not finished, but like, we'll have another update.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys up to speed and let you know when we're done.
Okay.
Love it. All right, that's 2 no's. Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, I have to wonder if the arcade game was good. I know we talked a lot about how they failed to port it to the Dreamcast in a home console version, and that is a problem. That is one issue. But then the more I played the game, I started to try and imagine myself in the arcade at the cabinet, and if that experience would have been good. And I've determined no. Like Dustin said, it's boring, and there's no real draw for me to play it. I also think that they didn't quite know what kind of game they wanted to make, given that you can choose the melee route, but it's hidden. Like, kind of, you have to like know that you can do that, and plan for it, do it, and then also find out that in that playthrough you'll be gated by a boss fight that's near impossible due to the timer and the design. It just feels like they kind of threw a lot together from a lot of other games to make this like zombie smorgasbord of game, and it's bad, and you can miss it. And I want to play a good Dreamcast game. That's all I have to say. No thanks.
That means that Zombie Revenge is not New Game Plus certified, but what did you think on our YouTube poll this week? 16% of you said yes, it's worth playing today. 4% said no, and 80% have never played it before.
Okay.
Not a surprise.
I'm in the 80s.
I would have thought even more would have never played it before, but maybe some of them played it in the
same.
arcade. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
A lot of you played along, wrote in. We'll be able to include a few of your thoughts here. Super Gamer Guy said, Zombie Revenge is a poor excuse to translate a light gun series into the mechanics and level design of a brawler. This game embodies clunky in every sense of the word, from its stiff controls to its jagged transitions between level segments. Attacks are hard to avoid. The default pistol does minimal damage at best, and health refills are more scarce than any humans not already turned into zombies. The mediocre graphics and sound are nothing to write home about either, with the visual design for the bosses being its only aspect worth noting. Zombie Revenge is far from a must-play on the system, and it pales in comparison to contemporaries like Die Hard Arcade, let alone similarly themed brawlers like Night Slashers. Do yourself a favor and skip this clear no NGP title.
Yeah, about the health pickups in this one, like, they nerfed that. They tweaked that instead of the rest of the game. They nerfed, like, they probably had a version. They're like, oh, it heals too much. Knock it down. Knock it down further. Knock it down further. Like, the health pickups don't help that much.
Those antidotes aren't even health pickups. You get poisoned when you get hit by a zombie, and then you move slower, and so you have to pick those up to take that off. Health pickups are virtually non-existent, yeah.
Yes.
Because they want you to
don't
spend
help
coins.
a lot. Exactly.
But on a Dreamcast, you need health pickups. Like, come on.
They needed to do the home port rework of some of the mechanics. Absolutely. Yeah, whole story.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got people like Shane. And we've got a few of those in here that said this game is honestly pretty fun. I had a bit of dread hearing beat 'em up for this week because the genre has just not really gelled with me in the past, but this one has guns, which does feel like it makes it much better. It definitely has some quarter munching tendencies, and I think I have only given it a few in an actual arcade, but as is, I feel like I could learn to beat it with less and less continues over time. It kept pulling me back this week to see if I could get that little bit further, and most times I actually did. The game definitely got a lot more reasonable once I realized spamming bullets wasn't the way to go. The aim reticle charges and makes you do way more damage than that amount of time spamming would. Overall, a pretty fun game, and some hope that this genre isn't wholly a lost cause for me overall. NGP.
I can't be mad at that, honestly.
Oh,
it's not one of those games where I'm going to be like, dude, you're tripping. Like, I can see someone liking it. I can even see someone that loves Resident Evil kind of easing into this a little bit.
I'll almost go a step further and say it's one or two small decisions away from being a pretty fun game.
Maybe.
Y'all are, no.
I'm
not there.
I'm still
I'm
in
definitely
the no
not there,
camp.
Dustin.
Like, the problems were too problematic for me, but it was a better game than I think we're giving it credit for.
Well, no, I won't say that. I do think, but the tweaks you're saying need to be big tweaks. But if they made those, I would have a different discussion.
It needed to be there needed to be some pretty fundamental ones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mal said, as for a single-player experience, it might have been good for the console in its time, but it's very repetitive. Shoot, move, get hit anyways, and shoot. I don't think you can beat this game without losing a life. There is a lot of cheap attacks, and there is no switching targets option to deal with many enemies attacking you. Surely intended from its arcade nature. So that's all the time I've got. If you'll excuse me, I have to go back and play Final Fantasy IX on my PlayStation 1. No
Just like
NGP.
Lenny.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
I didn't mention this. The best thing about this game is when they grab you, you can kick them in the face a bunch of times to get them off, and the animation looks stupid. It's really funny.
Oh, yeah, and as you're shooting them, parts of their body is falling off, like an arm, or they'll lose a head. That's fun.
There's some zombie things like that really are satisfying here.
Finally, Garlisle says, no thanks. You can tell this was an arcade game with its absolutely zero health recovery, chain stunning, and constant unnecessary timer, all trying to force you to put in more quarters. And unfortunately, I don't mean this as a compliment. It's not the worst, but, like, I'll have forgotten it in a few days.
Yeah. As always, Garlisle just gets it. Yeah.
For now, we are setting aside Zombie Revenge. If it doesn't take Lenny's time this week, instead of playing Final Fantasy IX, you're going to play Zombie Revenge
I'm
instead.
all in. I might keep playing Final Fantasy IX. We'll see.
We are putting aside this game, and we are not randomly selecting a new game because it is, again, a director's episode.
Big.
Randomizing now. Director Riff will be joining us this next week to talk about a game that they selected that I think, and we've said this before, but I think we can arguably say it now, that this game is the most recent game that we've ever played because it only became available for us to play, our 15-year-old or older, November 18th.
Dang, so like days ago.
Less than a month ago, it became available.
That's exciting for Riff.
It's also exciting for us because
Yeah.
it's not a retro game.
No,
like
it'll be newer.
You know, it's a lot
fresh.
newer, so that doesn't always mean good, though.
No.
This is a first-person shooter
Okay.
that came out for the PC and Xbox 360,
Okay.
and it was developed and published by Valve.
By Valve.
It is a game set in the aftermath of a zombie outbreak on the East Coast of the United States. Find a copy and play along with us for the next 7 days. We are going to be playing Left 4 Dead.
And we will be playing Left 4 Dead because it's still supported and we can freaking do that. Yes.
Us together?
Yes. It's on Steam.
Oh,
The servers are up.
my.
Sure. It's amazing.
We're double dipping zombies, and when I said zombies have other zombie games that are their competition,
This one's
this is what I meant.
But
This
also,
game rules.
what? Oh, you know already.
Yes.
I mean, it's Valve.
think
Like, it's
I
going to
the
be great.
amount of hours I've put into Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 is insane.
Really?
I think I
Yes.
started the second one at one point on
It's
console.
Great. Characters.
And, well, I was
great.
going to play it like with
Okay.
my wife. And
Grabbing
the
peels.
camera's all over the place, so we didn't because she gets motion sick. So I'm excited to pick it up again.
I'm
Maybe with y'all.
well, probably
For
with
sure
us,
with
but
us.
I'm very excited because Lenny has the first play, and you get scared on games like this.
Actually, scared games like Far Cry get me, but I don't know if zombies on their own will scare me.
Well, fingers crossed, all four of them. All right, find a copy of Left 4 Dead. Play it along with us this week.
Don't get left on red. Join our Discord server where you can chat with us. You can chat with our community. Lenny will be in there sometimes. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/newgameplus and you can get the invite.
You can go to patreon.com and support us if you would like. Like our large list of director level supporters, who we'll shout out first because we got a director episode coming up, including Bro Jim, Miss Muso, Super Hyper, Siegfried, Riff, and Arlen Yuki. I'm going to pronounce that name incorrectly, I'm sure, at some point. Thank you to Fun Hippie for being our newest patron to join us this week.
That's fun.
Hey.
And to our large and growing list of producer level supporters who are the backbone of what we do. We're so thankful for you guys, including Adam, Alex, and Marley, and Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Garlisle, Gimbin, Hallex, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Glenn, Nick, Nat, Corey, Levi, Maximum, Metroid, Nolan's Old Mustache, Not Enough Dog, Orlando, Workin' Punch, Pedro, Sagent, Shane, Shauna, Psycho Mantis, The Kentucky Kid, Thomas, Turtle, Unbelievable, and Zion. Appreciate you guys.
You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. And if you're still listening at this time, most of you have your Spotify Wrapped now available. And a lot of other, apps do this as well.
End of
but
year,
whatever you listen to us on, if you're getting an end of year report and we are included in that, then post that on social media, tag us, and we would love to repost that. And also, as a part of our Christmas cast, we'd love to shout out a few of those. We know that some of you have some crazy hours listened to NGP in the last year. Some of you have listened to a ton of episodes. And if you are in our top 1% or some of you in our top 0.5% of listenership, we'd love to know.
Let it be known.
You can listen to us on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Left 4 Dead. Until then, I'm still Dustin.
I'm Vivi.
Ooh, I'm Stick.
Yeah, you are.
And this has been New Game Plus.